microphone if that's okay. Can everyone hear me? In the back, can you guys hear me? Ish? Okay. All right. I guess I'll use it. I just need to tie it over here. So I'm sorry if I'm straying.
You can actually take it off. I think you can take it off, actually.
Okay. We'll see if I can jump both at the same time. So if you'd like to follow along, you can go ahead and open up this link here. It's up to you. Completely optional. So today I want to share with you our learning targets. We're going to be taking a look at building heritage learner interpersonal skills. So to accomplish that, we're going to be doing a few different things. First, we're going to outline the characteristics of proficiency levels in terms of language. Then we're going to take a look at performance versus proficiency. We'll be identifying some interpersonal instructional strategies, as well as identifying interpersonal instructional tools. So my goal is to share within this presentation several things that we do that you can steal for your lesson plans for tomorrow. I know that you guys are busy, it's hard being gone out of the classroom in one day, so my hope is that your takeaways from this will be multifold so that it's not just the content you're getting, but little tips and tricks that you can use as well.
What's your tiny URL again?
We'll take you back here. NIESHL 2017 KM by initials. Maybe about 20 more seconds. Bring it back to 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here we go. So let's take a moment and see where we're at. I want to get the pulse of kind of what your knowledge is and kind of what we're thinking, see if we're on the same page. If you could go ahead and log in, so you can use your cell phone if you'd like. You can click on the link. So with a lot of these little tech things that we're going to be doing, since you do have access to the link, I might not stay on the screen the entire time. If you lose it, look on with your neighbor, pull up the presentation, but we're going to kind of go through so we don't lose too much time doing some of the technology things. So we can see a lot of different descriptors about language learning. There's so many things for us to think about and process as we're teaching a language. So what I like about this particular tool as well is that it gives everyone in the room an idea of kind of where your thought processes are going. You can see that this just keeps getting larger and larger and the different things that kind of come to the fore, things that are repeated. So authentic is something that several people wrote, and that's one of our goals today is to make sure that we address this. So let's talk a little bit about proficiency. So I'm going to do an activity that's called Chop Talk. Normally this is something where you get up, move around, but due to the location and the size of our group, we're not going to do that. So we're going to do that digitally if you'd like to. So please go ahead and go to this Padlet. Again, you can click on it in the link. You can look on with the neighbor. But our goal is going to be to look at Padlet. I'm going to bring it up for you so you can kind of see what it is. We're going to be visiting each Padlet 3 different times. And we're not going to be talking. We're going to see what we can do digitally. So you'll see at the top we have 3 different links you can go between. We're going to start at the novice level. So the directions, make a new note just like somebody did. Finish this sentence or comment on someone else's note. So novice learners, when you're thinking about a novice language learner, what can those learners do in terms of proficiency? What can they talk about? What types of language do they produce? So we're starting on the novice. If you've added your note, you can go go to one of those other ones, intermediate or advanced, we're going to focus on just 3 proficiency levels. If this doesn't make sense, just work on it. And I'll kind of go to the different outlets to show you the different views. Once you've got to the novice, that would be initial. You can go to the different things at the top. Question?
Yes, I'm a novice learner. How would you
Yes, good point. You can just double click anywhere in the space. But it does this, I will say this functions a little bit better from a computer than a phone, so if you're using your phone, it's be a slightly challenge. But again, kind of the goal is just to showcase Padlet for you. That's another tool that you can use. But also, let's take a look at kind of what we're producing in terms of the proficiency. So novice learners can give lists, one-word phrases, they can talk about themselves, use memorized phrases, greetings. So novice learners are some of our traditional L2 learners that Kim was talking about earlier today. These are students in our traditional Spanish 1. Now, heritage learners can certainly be at the novice level as well, and maybe in terms of their confidence levels, they start out at the novice level. Let's take a moment to look at our intermediate level. I'm sorry, one thing I want to point out that with the pictures, with novice you can think of a carrot. They're constantly repeating things that you're giving them, and they're able to produce it, but it's a lot of things that are based on exactly what you have. Now our intermediate learner, we have someone who's barely hanging on or struggling, they're right at that edge. So these are things where they're linguistic survivors, that's a great expression. They hang on with their language, they have simple sentences, they might have control of 1 or 2 different tenses. They start to take risks with language, they create with language, they may ask questions, they kind of move beyond that memorized phrase. And then let's take a look at our third one, if anyone got to that yet, which is our advanced level.
Excuse me, may I interrupt for just a moment?
Sure.
We have a red Volkswagen Passat in the handicap space. Your car alarm, if that's your car, the alarm is going off. License plate maybe Q14. If that's one of your cars, your alarm is going off, seems to be getting weaker. I hate for you to go out and have your car be dead. Okay? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Thanks.
Let's take a look at our advanced learner. So based on the picture, this is a storyteller. This is someone who can describe in detail, talk about different time frames, use different length, paragraph length. That's a good point about the text piece. So we have our different types of learners. So as you're thinking about your students, you probably have many students who fall within these different categories. Even within each of these proficiency levels, we have different subgroups. So just because someone can do these things doesn't mean that they are doing them the exact same way as the person next to them. So if we take a look at our proficiency levels according to ACTFL, so this is kind of a modified version of a chart that they share. It's always an inverted triangle. We have 4 main levels, and actually there's distinguished, which is at the top, and that was recently added. So we can take a look at, just in general, in terms of our classroom experiences, we normally target learners between the novice, intermediate, and advanced area. So, for example, to become a teacher in Illinois, we all had to take the oral proficiency exam. Does anyone remember what the proficiency benchmark was for teachers? Advanced low. So you can see that, kind of keeping that in mind, just to think about where your students might be at. So now let's talk about proficiency levels in terms of what I like to say real time. I want to share this with my students. This is something that I like to share with them as we go through and talk about learning language and break it down for them. If I showed them that chart earlier, they might be kind of giving me a little bit of a look, like, what's going on? So the goal of this is that you can print this and share it with your students. I'm going to make it a little bigger so we can read it and see it. So can you talk tacos? Welcome to my class, which is a language class. And so we want to learn all about language without using it to talk to anyone. We're going to talk about verbs and nouns and adverbs and adjectives and lots of describing words, but we're not actually going to talk. Just kidding. Talking to people is what our class is all about. We're on a journey to communicate and connect with real people who speak real language. We're starting our journey by talking about a lot of two big keys: performance and proficiency. What's proficiency? Proficiency helps us stop talking about grades that don't really tell us how we're doing and instead talk about levels that tell us what we can do and where we're headed next. So here's a quick rundown. We have novice low, mid, high, intermediate low, mid, high, advanced low, etc. You get the picture. Performance is doing stuff with language. It's how we show the language from our proficiency level on a topic or topics. How about an example? This is where we start to talk tacos. How would you talk about a taco? If you start with a few simple words, you might say something like beef, onions, cilantro, yum. That would be an example of a novice low learner. Let's add in some repetitive phrases. Onions on top, cilantro on top, no hot sauce. Eat every day. Now you're moving up, you're a novice learner. When you can put some sentences together, they may still be simple, but it makes a complete sentence. I like tacos. Tacos, beef, and I like beef. I put onions. My friend John loves onions. He doesn't like onions. So you can see that you kind of get the gist. You're laughing because it's, not necessarily grammatically correct, but I'm telling you a little bit more than that novice low learner. So then that's where we're moving the novice high. How can we keep going? Add connectors and vocabulary. My family eats tacos often because we all like them. My mom makes the best tacos. She finds recipes online and makes amazing tacos with different ingredients. Do you want to come to my house to try my mom's tacos? That's where we're jumping up to the intermediate level. You can see that we're creating with language, we're asking questions, we're stringing sentences together. Want to get crazy? Let's describe and narrate major time frames. Last night, I ate delicious tacos that my mom made with my siblings. We had pork, beef, and chicken. We will eat these scrumptious tacos for my birthday next month. Vegetarian? No problem. I'll help you make an amazing taco without meat that you will love as much as I do. In fact, let's eat some right now. So in our class, we'll talk about how to work out figuring these two things. What proficiency level am I showing here? How can I work on moving to the next one? Because with these things, we're really asking, how can I connect with people today, and how can I connect with them tomorrow? So I like this little explanation to kind of share with students, and also then from educators and anyone really taking a look at proficiency to break down what it really means in terms of our language. So again, think back to those students who are sitting in your classrooms right now with a guest teacher. Think about their different proficiency levels. Where are they at in terms of what they came into your class with, where they're at now, where you hope that they're going to exit your class? So this is the official chart from NIESHL. Again, we focus on the novice, intermediate, and advanced versions when we're looking at high school language instruction. This gives us kind of a little snapshot of different things. Again, talking about those global tests and functions. Our context, that's also very important. Novice learners talk about themselves. Intermediate, talk about predictable, familiar topics related to daily activities. Same as the advanced, that they can handle a complication within there. We look at our accuracy. This is something as language teachers we're always very concerned about. We're worried, how accurate are they? Do they make sense? Do they conjugate that verb? Do they add that gender agreement? We look at our proficiency levels. Novice learners don't look at accuracy at all, really. Intermediate, we're understood, but there's going to be a lot of messy things going on where your message is going to get across, but it's not going to sound right. And advanced is where we start to get to the point where the message really isn't hindered by some of the grammatical pieces. Also take a look at the text type. We have advanced has kind of that paragraph level. Again, that storyteller. Intermediate is looking at discrete sentences. Novice is really individual words or phrases or memorized sentences. So let's take a little quiz. What proficiency level is this? We're going to use some tech again. So first, if you could go to menti.com and use that code. I'm going to change the screen, but it's going to display the same corrections. This works much more nicely on your phone if you're using that. So what proficiency level is this? Oh, I'm sorry, let me move this up here. Thank you. 225598. So, what proficiency level is this task? Prepare a 5-minute speech on a cultural celebration in Puerto Rico, contrasting and comparing the cultural practices and aptitudes between a similar demographic group in the U.S. and San Jose. Alright, I'm glad that nobody put novice. I think we're all in agreement that our first-year learners may kind of struggle with that. So this is an advanced task. Let's try the next one. Did you get an next one from the other screen? No. I think it probably wasn't the best day for me to pilot anything, but I wanted to show you guys something neat. Let me just log in real quick. I did see some intermediates. People had marked that that was possibly intermediate. Why don't you talk with your neighbor about why that was not intermediate? Bring it back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That particular was not intermediate in terms of was that talking about themselves, anything related to them. There were some things that they could possibly relate to, but the content itself was more advanced, as well as the expectation of what they're doing. 5-minute presentation. Let's take a look at the next one. What proficiency level is this? All Spanish students are going to Mexico. The class needs to decide where they will visit on the trip. To help with the plans, research the given region. Create a commercial to promote the region and explain why students should go there. Alright, so we're still kind of deciding on this one. Looks like the bulk of the group thinks this is intermediate. I'm going to give you a moment again to talk to your neighbor and try to defend your position. Tell them what you chose and why. We'll bring it back to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Majority was right. This one's an intermediate. You guys are getting pretty good at this. Let's try the next one. There we go. Oh. This should not be the same. Did we get these? Did you get this first one in this order? Is this the third one? Okay, I'm sorry. It's my mistake. The World Languages Club has decided to create a cookbook of healthy recipes based on the format of eat this, not that. Browse online recipes and work in pairs to change the ingredients to healthier recipe alternatives. I see that basically the group we figured out. I know this was the third of 3, so it's probably obvious for that reason. But also, if we look at the type of task, students are asking to use words or phrases, single vocabulary words, not necessarily an advanced discourse. So, if you would like some resources, this is really just a very scratching the surface about proficiency levels and taking a look at a snapshot. You can go to these links to get the official documents from Actual about them. The second one is a really great piece that has can-do statements that are broken down in student-friendly language. You can apply it to any language, any type of learner. So these are some resources for you to look at when you're moving forward. Now let's talk about proficiency versus performance. Go ahead, turn and talk with your neighbor and describe how language might look different in these two contexts. Bring it back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So as you described, these are obviously very different contexts. So we have to negotiate and navigate the two during our instruction. Perfection is not the goal of proficiency. Let's take a look. Do we need to be perfect in a market in order to get our message across? In the classroom, do we need to be perfect to get our message across? No, but are we going to have someone pointing out where we can improve and make things better? Whereas in the proficiency setting, we might not have that. And again, I want to repeat this and highlight this. As teachers, it's our job to help students and to coach them, but also to know that the ultimate goal of our language class is not accuracy. That's hard for a lot of teachers to let go of. Yes, we do need to show them how to do things correctly and to correct their work and to help them. But perfection is not the goal of proficiency. If you take a look at that word cloud that we started this talk with, and we had different things that we talked about, what are 3 powerful things of language learning? I didn't see accuracy or grammar anywhere in that word cloud. So let's take a look thinking about proficiency, assessment, and instruction. Proficiency, we communicate meaningful information. It's spontaneous. It's understandable to native or heritage speakers. It does not mean perfection. It does not measure where, when, or how the language was acquired. This means that it's putting us all on an even playing field. Performance is a familiar context. It's practiced and rehearsed. It's connected to a specific curriculum or content. So what is our ultimate goal? Performance or proficiency? Woo! How do we get there? Performance. So we're coaching our students without realizing. I really like this next image. This shows us kind of where they begin. In our heritage learners van, we all begin at the bottom, right? They might start at different levels of this. They still all go up in the heart of practice. So if we think of our last unit, our last semester even, our students were kind of at the top of that bell curve. We had coached them, they were ready, they had that final exam. Now when we let them loose in a real life setting, we're not there to support them, to tell them what structures they can use, what content to talk about. That's kind of where they fall in terms of proficiency. So once you learn even more, again, this is really just scratching the surface, and I'm going to tell you in a minute how this is really connected to our interpersonal strategies. There is oral proficiency interview training. This is something that I highly recommend if you're at all interested in this. Typically, NIESHL will sponsor it every summer. I was looking for current or upcoming conferences on this, and I haven't seen any. So if anyone knows, and if the NIESHL contact is here, maybe he can tell us if anything's scheduled. Typically, there's some in June and in August. But this is a really, really great training. It's probably one of the best ones I've ever been to as a language educator. You can also click on this link, which is also really great for a variety of reasons. You have guidelines by language, and I'm going to show you the Spanish version because it's entirely in Spanish. It includes all of the modes of communication, and it also has examples. So if you want to see what more examples of what a novice learner might do, or an advanced learner in terms of speaking, so we'll click on Spanish. This is also something you can share with your students. Let's take a look at speaking, that's what we're going to talk about. It has all of the different pieces. And then, like I said, there are sample pieces of work. So it's a really powerful resource for you. Also, just by a show of hands, how many of your schools are participating in the Illinois State Seal of Literacy. Woohoo! Give yourself a round of applause. So if you're not, I highly encourage you to take a look at this to see what it is. So basically it's a certification that will recognize students who are proficient in multiple languages. One of the big assessments that's typically used in each school can adopt their specific guidance is the APPLE assessment. So this is something that if you haven't looked into already, I highly encourage you to do that. So in the state of Illinois, in order for a student to receive the Seal of Literacy, what proficiency level do they need to be at? Anyone? A little louder? Intermediate adding. So just that step below where the teacher needs to be at. So for a lot of your heritage learners, this is very, very attainable. And even for non-heritage learners. In our district, we are a large district. We have about 5,000 students combined in the high schools. And we're still, this is the third year that we're doing the Seal of Literacy. Last year, I believe we recognized 80 students for receiving that, and that wasn't all in Spanish. We had that in the other languages that we offer, as well as a few students who were just heritage learners of other languages. So, I highly encourage you to look into that. So now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Proficiency in speaking. Let's talk about interpersonal communication. So we're going to do another little interactive feature. Please go ahead and go to todaysmeet.com/NIESHL. Again, if anything else, at least you were busy here in 40 minutes or so. Today's Meet is basically just an online chat. It's been around for a while, so you may have used it. Go ahead and join the room. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. And answer this question. What are the critical components of successful interpersonal communication? After you post, you can start to read the different comments that come through. So if you're not posting, look on your neighbors. We see a lot of different things for successful interpersonal communication. Again, I haven't seen anyone put using the correct grammatical tense or spelling things correctly, spelling them aloud, or anything related to accuracy. We're thinking about proficiency. Perfection is not the goal. So interpersonal communication, we just described many of these things that it is. It's a two-way exchange. It's not just one-sided. Not one person is not just listening. It's spontaneous. Again, we don't script exactly what we're going to say. It's helping each other, listening to one another, following up and reacting, maintaining the conversation, indicating interest, focusing on the message, again, not accuracy. And if communication fails or falters, we ask for clarification. So what is interpersonal communication? All of these things. What is it not? It's not one way of memory. It's not a dialogue. It's not strict turn-taking. I talk, you talk. I talk, you talk. It's not one person asking all the questions. It's not ignoring your partner, waiting for them to say something. Again, not concerned about accuracy, overly concerned. And not giving up when you don't understand. Think about that proficiency setting, that market. If someone doesn't understand it, we're saying, sorry, I guess I don't need to eat today. I'm going to leave. So when we develop interpersonal tasks, we need to consider these proficiency levels. We have to think about the things that we're asking students to do. A, we need to get them comfortable speaking and support them properly, but B, really think about how are we challenging them and kind of going along the lines of this morning's discussion with differentiating. This is a simple way that you can differentiate by slightly modifying the task for some of your different learners. So tasks need to provide a real need to communicate, providing key information. Again, what's the point? Why would they want to talk about it? Of course, I want you to talk about it because it's in the curriculum and I have something great planned for it, but what's going to engage the students in talking about it? It has to be within the content where they have familiarity. So again, this should be easy for us as teachers. We're teaching them about a specific topic. We're not teaching them just about the predator attempts. We're talking about a bigger picture thing, something related more to a theme. And we're providing the students some degree of control. So they're not having a predictable response, but they have an idea of kind of how to appropriately answer. And then again, this elicits language at the appropriate proficiency level. So, for example, thinking back to your students today, in our advanced heritage and learner classes, we are not going to ask them to just do something where they produce one-word answers, generating a simple list. That might be one tool that we're doing to move forward, but that's really a much lower level task. So some example task frames that can be pretty open-ended, provide students with choice, have this opportunity for differentiation, convince your partner to adopt your stand about insert topic you're teaching right now. Come to a consensus on what you're teaching tomorrow. Meet and talk about what happened when you reviewed something last month. Identify what's in common or different about X, Y, Z. Talk about this image. So these are just some very broad, general types of frames that you could use for any context. So then as a teacher, we need to make sure that we're setting performance expectations for students and including them in the assessment of the task. So knowing that we're not just going to say, talk about this and you're going to get a score of 0 to 10, but tell them what they need to do. Students will ask for clarifications. It will maintain the conversation about it. This is something you really need to coach them to in the beginning, and then as you continue throughout the year, they know that this is a non-negotiable for you. So getting students to speak. One of the typical things that I always hear, multiple times, any language classroom, heritage learner or not, is really getting students comfortable speaking. So we need to randomize student participation and voice. Know that they're always not going to have the same partner. It's not always the same setting. Practice often, but keep it safe. Give frameworks and scaffolds for success. I'll give you some examples of those. And again, some of our learners, this might not apply to. Our advanced heritage learners, in general, as long as you give them a topic they're interested in, they'll talk to you just like they would talk to their friends. During practice, document that they spoke without grading their attempts. Again, none of those things we talked about were related specifically to accuracy. There does come a time and place for that, but that's not during our practice necessarily. So before our interpersonal strategies, all students, we need to allow them to apply knowledge from interpretive activities. So I think later on today, Blair's going to be talking to us a little bit more about those. But it's really giving them that vocabulary to talk about. So that's one of the things that we're doing is developing the students' vocabulary, broadening into different contexts. They need that support in order to talk appropriately about some of these contexts. And then how can we support those who are hesitant to speak? Allow them to possibly write about a topic before they speak, but don't let them use that while they're speaking. Kind of get them to brainstorm first. Provide a graphic organizer before the conversation to get them to jot down topics. You could ask them to even prepare emergency questions if they come to a conversation block. Or one of my favorites is just to ask them to start over. They run out of things to say, start over. It sounds kind of silly, but it's something to get them under that expectation of just because the conversation starts to falter does not mean that you give up. Another piece is taking a look at our pairing. So maybe you have a conversation, it was really great, whereas another group's wasn't so great. Let's try again with a new partner. It can be completely different the next time around. So we have a couple of random pairing methods for changing partners. Instead of your elbow partner, go to your head to toe partner. That's a simple one. Follow the yellow brick road. We have a yellow brick road around your classroom, or even the trail in between the desks that you can have students rotate through. Snake through the class. Inner outer circles, row switch, popsicle sticks. These can have their names on them, shapes, colors, numbers. I'm going to kind of give you a big laundry list. If you have specific questions about how do these work later, just step by and see me. Color coding on the desks. Some people have success with this, some people don't. You might have students seated in pairs, and there's red, blue, green, and yellow, so you can make any sort of combination for them. Card pairs. This is, again, one of my favorites, and I'm going to explain why in the next slide. But there are many different things. You can have 2 or 3 cards that pair together. So words that have the same vowel sound or ending, same prefix, country capital match, academic vocabulary word definition, words that rhyme, words that are synonyms, antonyms, a quote split on 2 cards, author title, author text title match, different jokes, riddles. I like these because it builds in some content when you're pairing. And again, you can use these for completely random purposes. You can count out how many you have and know that you have 15 sets of pairs, but your class is 30. I also like these because I'm going to explain it in a minute. But go ahead and let's get a chance to kind of stand up and stretch it out. So let's have our stand up, hand up, pair up protocol. Step 1, stand up. After you stood up, please commiserate with someone next to you about how you hate standing up and moving during presentation.
This sucks.
Kids hate getting up. They turn
Step 2, put your hand up and signal a willingness to share ideas. Someone should high-five you. Step 3, we're going to take turns responding to the prompt or question. You get bonus points if you encourage each other. So E2, what are some ways that you pair students for interpersonal speaking? We just talked about a few things that I have, but what do you do? What did you do yesterday? What did you do last week?
I have
What did you do last month?
labs, cut-ups, lid laminating for me, and I have, I like those because like I cut the Argentina product in 3 days, like 5, so that's a good idea. With peers, it's supposed to be like So I just look at, I wrote down like X equals 5 and 2 to 3, and so if I don't have 2, then I'll just put
Defer to yeah.
I don't have any flags. They don't know the flag.
I just put like the loud kids, the quiet kids, and then I went, oh my god. It's like,
1, you can thank your partner for all the great ideas and have a seat. This is also an example of teaching a protocol. This is something that you can use in your classroom for interpersonal speaking. You can make your own silly graphics and silly things to go along so that they know every time that you ask them to do this, you want them to follow that set protocol. It also gives you a chance to get up and stretch, break things. So now let's talk about why I love those card pairs a little bit more. You can also use that for intentional pairing. This goes hand in hand with what Kim was talking about this morning about differentiation. Differentiation is not always one set thing. You can provide students opportunity for choice. You can alter the task. You can alter how it's assessed. You can also alter the pairs. You can match students by ability level. So let's say those of you who have your heritage or non-heritage learners in the same classroom, this might be something that you can do to intentionally pair students for whatever reason that you want to. It provides it takes a little bit of more work on your end in terms of maybe painting those pairs in advance, but once you do it a few times, the students will be really great at it. You're going to see the benefits twofold in terms of their production as well as your planning. In addition to that, you can have your groups displayed on the screen. Let's say I had enough for today. I might have 3 large chunks in different colors. I might have names listed in one list that find a partner who's in red. You guys go to this area of the room. Find a partner who's in green and blue. That's one of my favorite things. You can have a different paper than a partner. So this can be a variety of things. Maybe someone has a full sheet, someone has a half sheet, someone has hole punched, someone's is green and red. You pass those all out during the class at the beginning. The students don't know that they have different ones, or if they do, they just think it's kind of a mix. Then after you complete that interpretive activity for the interpersonal, the pairing part, you can say, all right, find someone who's got the same color as you. Find someone who has a different color than you. The opportunities are really endless with that. Or just simply display a new seating chart. Give them that chance to get up, move, randomize. So now that you have your partner, or many different partners, what do you do? Give a direction about who starts. This seems like a silly thing, but often we overlook it. And we forget that a lot of times the strongest student will start first. They're the one willing to take that risk, to jump in, get started. Then we might find that the partner just simply models what they're telling them. So some of the really quick, easy things to do for that. Who woke up the earliest today? Who has a nice birthday? Who has the brightest colored shirt? These are, again, ways to encourage conversation in the language outside of just the content. Do you want to hear the conversation without actually listening to everyone or hear it from the partner's perspective? You You can provide a grid for them to record responses. So again, not verbatim. This would be more taking notes. You have to coach them on this, but a way to kind of jot down what they're talking about. This is particularly important when you're talking about content pieces if you want to see what they got from the conversation. You could ask them to draw an image, documenting what their partner told them, just some sort of thing to show you that they're listening. They're not just sitting there nodding their head. They're listening. When we're building our interpersonal skills in groups, we have a few different strategies. Again, I'm going to kind of run through a laundry list for you. My goal is that you'll have one sort of takeaway from all of this today that you can apply in class. If you have a question about how something works, you've never heard of one, please ask me later. 4 quarters, vote with your feet. I have 2 sides of the room. For both of these, you need to require students to share and discuss after they have that chance where they give their choice, their opinion, maybe they talk about it. Build your interpersonal skills in pairs. Extend the activity. Once they've answered, require them to ask a follow-up question. Elicit details. What did you do yesterday? I went to the movies. Who did you go to the movies with? I went with my mom. What did you guys see? So again, those are some novice level examples. You can certainly spiral that up for advanced proficiency levels. Information gap. Again, make the need for the conversation real. Why do they have to talk? Why do we talk to someone else? We don't just talk to talk. When I asked you to talk earlier, I didn't say just talk to your partner. I want you guys to practice your English for a few minutes. Tell me that in the present tense and the preterite. Don't talk in the future. Talk in the future. Stop. Carousel with ask trade. I'm going to outline this in the next one. Interview carousel. These are some structured activities that are specifically more for novice level students. That's why I give a little bit more detail. And again, this might not apply to you. It might be helpful though too. So ask trade. I'm actually not going to go through these. You can look through it on the slide if you're interested. But it's just different strategies to get them structured and speaking. So now let's talk about after. After they've had that conversation, what do we do? How do we know that they're successful? Well, we can't possibly list it. It's not some people had classes over 32 or 34. It's really tricky to hear all of them every single time that they speak. So we can use a self-assessment rubric. We all have rubrics for scoring. Have them look at just one part of the rubric. A lot of times when they do the whole thing, they get really caught up in going through the numbers, adding up their score. Oh, what did I give myself an A? Well, why did you give yourself an A? What is that actually merit? Take a look at that particular piece of the rubric. If you want to focus on accuracy, here's a great time to do that. How accurate were you? But maybe that's not your first pass at when you have a look at the rubric. Maybe they take a look at, was I understood? Did my partner know what I was saying? Did I ask questions? There's many different approaches. You can randomly call on 2 different students, repeat their conversation for the class, or share what their partner told them. I like the second part, because then it puts them on the spot a little bit more. All right, Jeff and Gabby, you guys just talked. Jeff, tell me what Gabby told you. And then he's got to repeat. Tell me a little bit more. You could randomly call on a student to be your partner for a sample conversation. And then again, after I talk with Jeff, now I'm going to call on someone over here. Tell me that what we just shared about, or tell me something that we didn't cover. Giving them that chance to be accountable. As teachers, we do a really great job of calling on students to share. We review everything. We have it pre-planned. But we kind of forget that step sometimes. If everyone's listening, how do we know that they're engaged? They're quiet, but are they actually following along? Some of our group discussion or interpersonal strategies. During these discussions, how can we make sure that everyone's following along? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Again, this is kind of be a laundry list of different strategies for you. Red, green, yellow cards. Discussion or cue cards. Really teach them about having a discussion. Provide a hear prompt and a say prompt. As soon as you hear that, that's your cue to speak. Chips. Provide them with chips or pesos or whatever sort of money that you'd like. Some people find it's effective for them. They have to give or take chips based on how they participate in the conversation. Think about your call-out strategy. So if I'm asking a question and I say, Liz, can you please tell me about blah, 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 blah? Everyone else just tuned out because I said Liz first. Whereas if I pose the question, wait 7 seconds, then call on someone, that's giving everyone an opportunity to formulate their response and think about it. Again, this is something that as teachers, we're focused on what we're doing. We want to get that good response or that first volunteer that raises their hand. Let's make it a little bit uncomfortable. Let everyone think and kind of sweat it out for a minute and see what I can come up with. I bet you're going to get a lot higher quality responses if you do this. Also, interpersonal is not just speaking. I want to remind you that interpersonal is a two-way exchange of information, negotiating meaning. So this can take place in reading and writing. You can do it with talk, kind of like we talked about earlier today, we can Padlet, where you can do an actual physical interactive in the room. Today's meet, texting, discussion boards, correspondence, Google Chat, Snapchat, Twitter, story writing, for example. This can be a controlled sort of setting as well. These are, again, just a whole plethora of things for you to kind of pick from on the menu. There's some tech tools. Don't worry, you have all these slides so you can get it later. We have several different resources here. I know that particularly our district is finally going one-to-one next year, so we're very excited about that. Many of you have been here for years. Lighting, I think, was one of the first schools that went to, so you guys, this is all probably old news for you. But just some different tools that you can use for different purposes in terms of interpersonal communication. Also, it's a nice way to kind of record, have those formative assessment pieces that are recorded along the way, build a portfolio for students, show them how much that they've grown. To kind of wrap things up, let's have a little 3-2-1 reflection and culture. So in a text or email to yourself, research shows that when we write something down, we're much more likely to do it when we set a goal or a number. So whatever you prefer, you can do it in another way too if you'd like. 3 key ideas that won't leave your head from what we talked about today, or if it's something Kim talked about, that's fine too. Two people with whom you want to continue this conversation. I had a chance to talk to a few people earlier today. Who do you want to learn more from? And then finally, one thing that you want to try this year, and I would actually encourage you to try it this week or next week. The sooner you can do it, the more likely you're to use it in the long run. So I'm sorry, I tried to shave off some time. It looks like we're exactly on time now. So thank you for your attention today. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you during lunch or the discussion time later on. Hopefully you're able to, again, use something in your instruction tomorrow or next week, and enjoy the rest of the conference.